I never thought I'd say this out loud, but there are moments, quiet, creeping moments, when I forget I'm just his mother. My name is Claudia, and I'm 41 years old. I'm a director at a mid-sized tech firm, the kind of woman people expect to be composed, focused, untouchable. They see the power suits, the tidy reports, the unwavering voice during board meetings, and they think I have everything figured out. They don't see what happens when I come home to the echo of a house where my only constant is my son, Leo. Leo isn't mine by blood, but he's mine in every way that matters. I adopted him when he was 3, after a string of foster homes had left him quiet and wary. I remember the first time he held my hand without flinching, the first time he fell asleep on my shoulder. Those moments still live in my chest like warm coals. I raised him alone. No partners lasted long. They all wanted children of their own, and I couldn't give them that. Infertility is a cruel, silent truth I've long since stopped explaining. But Leo never made me feel like I needed anything else. He filled the space those men left behind. He laughed in my kitchen, did his homework at my dining table, and fell asleep on the couch during our movie nights. He grew into my home like ivy over a garden wall, quiet, strong, and beautiful in ways I never saw coming. He turned 18 last week, legally an adult. I threw him a small party, just the two of us and a few of his friends. I baked his favorite cake, the one with chocolate and sea salt caramel, and I gave him a leather-bound journal embossed with his initials. He smiled, hugged me, and whispered thank you in a voice deeper than I was ready for. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Not because he was out late, but because he wasn't mine in the same way anymore. He was becoming something else, someone I couldn't keep tucked under my wing forever. It was a few days later when I saw him with her. A girl, blonde, freckled, with the kind of laugh that rings too loud in a quiet neighborhood. They stood on the porch, and she touched his arm like it was hers. I watched through the window, coffee going cold in my hand, my heart stuttering in a way that had nothing to do with maternal pride. I told myself I was being silly, but it didn't stop the ache in my chest when he texted me that night. Out with Lily. Don't wait up. I waited anyway. I don't know when it started. This strange pull between love and jealousy. I know how it sounds. I know what it looks like from the outside. But I swear, it's not what you think. I don't want him the way she does. I don't dream of stolen kisses or candlelit dinners. I miss him. The version of him that was only mine. The one who used to ask me to proofread his essays, who'd bring me tea when I worked late, who'd fall asleep with his head in my lap while we watched old movies. Now, when he comes home, he smells like someone else's perfume. His laughter belongs to someone else. And I hate that it hurts. I've tried to be rational, to remind myself that this is what raising a child means, letting go. But how do you let go of the one thing that kept you from falling apart?
He came home late last night.
I was still up, pretending to read, the TV humming quietly in the background. You're still awake? He asked, surprised. I couldn't sleep. He sat beside me on the couch, close, too close, and for a moment it felt like before. Like it was still just us. He smelled like rain and jasmine. I didn't ask if it was her perfume. He looked at me, and there was something unreadable in his eyes. You okay, Mom? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say I was proud. I wanted to tell him to run toward his life, to love loudly and make mistakes. But what came out was softer, shakier. I miss you. His brow furrowed, his hand finding mine. I'm right here. But he wasn't. Not really. And maybe that's the hardest part. That night left a mark. A simple moment, a couch, a hand, a confession, but it bloomed in my chest like a bruise. I lay awake until sunrise, the ceiling above me still and silent. My body was tired, but my mind wouldn't rest. Every second he spent away from me now felt like something slipping through my fingers. His boyhood, our bond, the version of us I wasn't ready to let go of. I didn't mention it the next day. I cooked his favorite breakfast, scrambled eggs with cheese, buttered toast, coffee, just the way he liked it. He ate quickly, distracted, his phone lighting up every few minutes. Lily again? I asked lightly, hiding the bitterness behind a smile. He grinned.
Yeah.
We're going to the park. She wants to try those paddle boats. That sounds nice. It will be. He paused, then looked at me. You should come with us sometime. I laughed. I'd be the third wheel, Leo. He tilted his head, his expression softening. You wouldn't. Not to me. That hurt more than I expected. It was kind. Too kind. Like he saw the unraveling before I admitted it to myself. I nodded, brushing crumbs off my plate, and excused myself to work. That's what I always did. Retreat to my office, bury myself in deadlines and schedules and quarterly forecasts. But not even numbers could distract me today. I watched the clock, counted the hours. I told myself I wasn't waiting for him, but I was. He came home past sunset, cheeks flushed, smelling like lake water and sunscreen and her. She followed him in for the first time. She was polite, too polite, calling me ma'am and complimenting the flowers in the entryway. I offered them juice. She declined. Leo accepted, then turned to her with the kind of smile that used to be mine alone. I'm going to change, he said, heading upstairs. And that left me alone with her. Lily. She was the type of girl I would have liked in any other world. Cheerful, open, smart in a way that didn't need to prove itself. But in this world, in my world, she was taking something from me, piece by piece, without even knowing it. He talks about you a lot, she said, twisting her fingers nervously. You're kind of his hero. I managed to smile, but it felt fragile. That's sweet of him. I mean it. He says you gave up everything to raise him, that you saved him. My throat tightened. I nodded. He saved me too. She smiled.
It was genuine.
And I hated her for it. Leo came back down in a hoodie and sweatpants. You ready? He asked her. She nodded, but before leaving, she turned to me again. It was really nice to meet you. I hope we can spend time together soon. I wanted to say, over my dead body. Instead, I said, looking forward to it. The door closed behind them, and the silence returned, familiar now, and heavier than ever. That night, I found an old photo album, one of the first I made after adopting him. Pictures of him at 4, 5, 7, grinning with cake on his cheeks, asleep in my arms, holding my hand with fingers still so small. He was mine then, entirely. Now he was becoming his own. And I didn't know who to be without him as my center. Later that week, I found myself standing outside his door. I could hear music playing faintly, something with a steady beat, soft vocals. I knocked once. Yeah, he called. I opened the door. He looked up from his desk, surprised. Everything okay? I was just checking in. I stepped inside, arms crossed. We haven't really talked lately. He gave a sheepish smile.
Yeah.
I guess I've been busy. I noticed. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just full of the things neither of us knew how to say. He stood up and came toward me. Mom, I know, I whispered. I know things are changing. I miss you. He wrapped his arms around me then, without hesitation. The kind of hug that meant more than words. I held on a little too long, but he didn't let go first. I miss you too, he said into my hair. I looked up at him, at the man he was becoming, at the boy I once rocked to sleep. And I knew I had to let him go. But not tonight. The moment stretched, our bodies still pressed close from the hug, the room bathed in sudden, shadowy darkness. A soft click somewhere in the house, then silence. The power had gone out. The sudden stillness magnified everything. His breath warm near my neck. The rise and fall of his chest against mine. The quiet hum between us. Whoa, Leo said, half laughing, half whispering. That's eerie timing. I tried to chuckle, but it came out thinner than I expected. I guess we forgot to pay the power bill, I murmured, joking more to break the weight in the air than anything else. Still, neither of us moved. Somewhere in my mind, I knew I should step back, that the hug had lingered long enough. But his body was warm and familiar, and the dark made it easier not to look at the lines we were approaching. He shifted slightly, resting his chin lightly on my shoulder. "It's nice like this," he said. Quiet. Without thinking, I reached up and gently ran my fingers through his hair. It was something I'd done when he was younger, to soothe him after a nightmare or a hard day at school. Back then, it was maternal instinct.
But now?
Now it felt different. He exhaled deeply, like something heavy had unknotted in his chest. "Can we sit?" he asked, guiding us toward the edge of his bed. We sat close, knees brushing. I could barely see him, only feel him, his presence, his scent, the steady rhythm of his breath. The dark stole away all distractions. It was just us and the space we shared. Then, quietly, almost too softly to hear, he said, "You smell like Lily." My heart jolted. My plan had worked. I had bought the perfume last week after noticing the way his face lit up around her. I'd told myself it was harmless, that it was only to feel close to him, that it didn't mean anything. But in that moment, I knew I had crossed a line. Not aloud, not physically, but inside, where it mattered. I turned my face toward his, and in the dark, I kissed him on the cheek. It was instinctive but deliberate, too close to the corner of his mouth, too long to be motherly. He froze. I felt it in the tension of his spine, in the silence that fell between us like a stone. Then, slowly, as if he couldn't help himself, he leaned in and pressed his lips to mine. It was a brief, trembling kiss. No urgency, just confusion, and longing, and something deeper that neither of us wanted to name. When we pulled apart, the silence roared. I could hear the rain begin to patter against the window outside, soft and steady. He started, then stopped. "I'm sorry." "No," I said, my voice barely audible. "Don't be." But I didn't know if I meant it, because the truth was, I didn't want to share him. I didn't want to be the afterthought, the woman he thanked at holidays while his heart belonged to someone else. I raised this boy. I poured every part of myself into him. And somewhere along the way, I forgot how to separate where he ended and I began. And maybe I didn't want to remember. After that night, everything changed, but nothing was spoken. The next morning, Leo was already up before me, a rarity. He was making coffee, humming to himself softly in the kitchen. When I stepped in, he looked at me, not with alarm or guilt, but with something else. Something unspoken and careful.
"Morning," he said.
"Morning," I replied. We didn't mention the kiss. We didn't need to. It hovered between us like mist, delicate and heavy, shaping the way we moved around each other. The way his hand brushed against mine when he passed me a cup. The way I lingered a little too long in the doorway when he left for class. Lily came by less often after that. At first, it was subtle, canceled plans, postponed visits. Leo always had a reason and they always sounded logical. A project, a headache, a need for rest. But I noticed the way his phone stayed face down more often. The way he smiled at her texts, then sighed instead of replying.
I didn't ask.
I didn't need to. It was late one evening when I found him in the living room, curled up in his usual spot, the TV flickering softly. I sat beside him, and he didn't move away. Instead, he leaned his head against my shoulder, just like he used to do when he was small. We stayed like that for a long time, wordless. "She's nice," he said suddenly, so softly I almost didn't hear. I knew who he meant. "She is," I agreed.
But
he didn't finish. I didn't push him to. We sat there, the warmth between us growing, and I felt something inside me soften and ache all at once. He was slipping closer. Not in the reckless way of young love, but in the quiet surrender of someone finding comfort where they didn't expect it. Later that week, I heard her voice at the door. Lily had stopped by unannounced. I watched through the crack in the hallway as Leo stepped outside to talk to her. His posture was gentle, careful, but distant. They spoke for 5 minutes. When he came back in, I didn't ask what he said. I only asked, "Do you want dinner?" He nodded, eyes a little clouded, but there was no hesitation in him when he followed me into the kitchen. No phone on the table. No messages waiting to be answered. That night, as we ate in the soft quiet of our home, it felt like something had shifted, like the world outside had dimmed, and all that was left was the two of us. We had always been a family of two, but now there was something deeper threading its way through our conversations, through every glance and brush of fingertips over shared dishes. It wasn't just connection. It wasn't just comfort. It was belonging and want. He cleared the plates without being asked, washed them slowly, thoughtfully. I stood behind him, watching the curve of his back, the slope of his shoulders, the easy way he fit into our kitchen, into my world. "I like it when it's just us," he said quietly. I stepped closer. "So do I." He turned, and for a moment, I saw everything we weren't saying. Everything we had tiptoed around since the power outage. The line we hadn't crossed again yet.
He didn't kiss me this time.
He only took my hand and brought it to his lips. A simple, reverent touch. And I knew, as surely as I knew my own name, that Lily was gone. Not out of malice. Not out of manipulation. But because something had begun growing between us long before she ever arrived. And now, there was no room for anyone else. It didn't happen all at once. It came like summer, slow, gentle, inevitable. The change in Leo. He started carrying himself differently, like he had found something he didn't know he was missing. His compliments grew bolder, not awkward or shy, but full of quiet confidence. "You look beautiful today," he'd say in passing, with the ease of someone who meant it fully. At first, I laughed them off, habits of a mother not ready to admit how good it felt to be seen by him in this new light. But the way his eyes lingered on mine, the way his hand would rest lightly on my back as he passed me in the hallway, spoke more than the words ever could. He had grown up, yes. But more than that, he had stepped into a space I didn't know I'd left open for him. It was a Saturday when he asked me not to make dinner. "Just relax," he said. "I've got everything." I tried not to pry, tried not to hover, though curiosity tugged at me with every minute that passed. I stayed upstairs, pretending to read, until he called me down with a single word. "Mom." I paused at the top of the stairs. That word, it still meant something. It always would. But tonight, something else lingered behind it. When I stepped outside, I gasped. Our small backyard had been transformed. Twinkling fairy lights were strung along the fence and trees. A blanket was spread out beneath a canopy of stars, with pillows and candles and 2 plates already set. The night was warm, the sky clear, and for a moment, it didn't feel like home. It felt like a dream. Leo stood near the edge of the blanket, a bottle of sparkling juice in hand, grinning like a boy and standing like a man. "You did all this?" I asked, stunned. He nodded. "For you." We sat and ate slowly, pasta, garlic bread, a small fruit tart for dessert. He'd made it all himself. I couldn't stop smiling. After we ate, he turned toward me, his expression shifting from playful to serious. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, fingers toying with a corner of the blanket. "About everything." I stayed quiet, letting him speak. "You chose me," he said, "when no one else did. You gave me everything. A home, a life, love. You deserved it," I whispered. He shook his head gently. I didn't even know how to accept it back then. But now I do. And I want to give it back to you, in every way I can. He looked at me then, fully. No hesitation. No confusion. Just truth. I love you, he said. Not just because you raised me. Not just because you're kind or strong or the only person who ever stayed. I love you because you're you. Because you see me. Because when I'm with you, nothing else feels missing. My breath caught. The world around us blurred. Only his voice, his eyes, the stars above. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. But I didn't. I let him cup my face, let his thumb trace the edge of my cheek, let the gravity between us pull me into a place I hadn't dared admit I wanted. And then he held me. No words, no rush, just the kind of embrace that felt like it could hold back every storm, every fear, every lonely night I'd ever known. His arms around me were strong, sure. Not the arms of a boy, but a man who had made a choice, who had returned the one I'd made all those years ago. I closed my eyes and let myself lean into him, into the warmth, into the truth. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to begin. I was already in it, right where I belonged.